And you've seen this, sort of type of market before, I assume?
Yeah, so I started in 2002, so I got to watch the crash in 2008, 2009, been through all that.
And this is not a crash, right?
Absolutely not.
Everybody keeps asking that, so.
Yeah, it's easy to use that as your frame of reference, but there's so many things that are totally different. So at that point in time, people were buying 3, 4 houses to flip them. And the lending was crazy. At this point, the lending makes good sense. And there's nobody out there buying homes that doesn't have a plan to use the house.
Very true. Yeah, things are totally different. I was in it as well, and you can see just the type of buyers that are coming in. It's not the same scenarios.
Right.
So
right.
It's not all that speculation.
None.
Yeah.
At this point.
So today we'll talk a little bit about some of the financing ideas that we have, how to use incentives. I think there's a lot of questions out there as to what you really get when you get an incentive from the builder, and how you can best utilize that. I think there's a lot of stuff out there in the market for promotional purposes that sort of kind of tricks you a little bit, and if you don't read the fine print, you don't have full understanding. So Steve here today is going to tell us a little bit about what that looks like, and what to look for and how to better understand it. So we're going to talk a little bit about the homes that are available for Neal. We'll probably have close to 30 plus inventory homes in process at the moment, in progress, that are going to be available probably before the end of the year. So over the next few months, we'll have homes for ready move-in. So if you're looking for something quick across various communities, we have 13 communities we operate in, all the way from north in the Parish area, all the way down to Port Charlotte. So we have homes across the board on all communities, and what we'll do is we'll talk to a couple of the salespeople today, and we'll do a little bit of a segment so they can show you some of their homes under production and tell you a little bit about those. We'll also talk about closing costs, rate buy downs, and sort of all the things that I think most people are probably wondering about. And
yeah, the different things you can do with the builder incentives.
Okay. So I guess before we jump into any of the homes, let me ask you a question, because I think everybody's mind, everybody's concerned about rates, is how do you hedge your risk on rates?
So I would start more generally than that and just say, first, think about your expectations. So if you're thinking that rates are going to go back to 2% or 3%, you need to stop. Us getting to that point was the fix for the big mess in 2008, right? Plus some additional factors afterwards. That wasn't normal. That isn't normal. But we just got lucky and had a period of however long it's been, right? 10 years, where interest rates have been insanely low. So it's a reasonable argument to say that this is interest rates coming back to normal. So I looked this morning. The data is from 1971, but the average from 71 till now, mortgage rates is in like around 7%.
Okay.
Right?
So we're still well below that.
Right, exactly. So, and the 2% to 3%, that was a function essentially of cost of capital, money being free, and that's not normal.
To get us back to a normal.
Exactly. That was
right.
that was the fix to the disaster that was the Great Recession, right? So in order for us to get back to the 2 or 3% interest rates, we're going to need another disaster.
Which we don't want.
I'd rather not do that.
Yeah, and I think the consumer a lot of times is sort of, they see these teaser rates or they see these advertisements, and in reality it's not that easy to get those rates in most cases unless you're doing some pretty unique financing.
Well, like everything else, right? Read the fine print. But for the most part, if you're looking at a really good interest rate, these days probably there are points in the fine print. You're paying to make the interest rate lower. And we can talk about buy downs in a bit. And it just depends on the degree. One of the interesting things about the industry, the mortgage industry, is if you watch the rates on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week, whatever, the ads, when rates go up sharply and everybody kind of panics, what ends up happening is the advertisements for the rate stays pretty steady, but the points in the fine print grow just to keep people happy, if you will.
So you pay it one way or the other.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I mean, in reality, a 5, a 6, even a 7% rate, it's not uncommon. I think historically, you said, right?
Right.
We're not back to was in the 80s that we had 19% rates, or the late 70s?
Yep, 18%. And at that point, they had all kinds of weird stuff to deal with those high interest rates that no longer exist, but it was there.
We just have to get to a more consistent and sort of normal market, I guess, at the end of the day.
That's the hope, right?
That's the idea. Okay. So one of the things before we go into the specific homes, people talk about rates. I think there's a misunderstanding or sort of, the public a lot of times thinks, oh, the Fed's raising rates, bam, mortgage rates are going up. Is that the case, or how does it actually work?
So when the Fed raises rates, anything can happen on that particular day, right? So what I would say is, if you looked at the last 2 times that they did it, on the day and I think the day after, interest rates actually went down. So if you take any event that is going to move the market, I think of it as a cycle. So there's the anticipation of what they're going to do. So people are trying to guess, and that can move the market. And then when the event gets there, they do whatever, the number comes out, they do whatever they're going to do, and you measure that against the expectations. So if it's wildly different than what people think, you're going to get a big market reaction. If they do what they said they were going to do, you're probably going to get no reaction. Then after that, the next day, people take a deep breath and look around and go, did we do the right thing or not? And then you're on to the next event. So right after that, the current announcement, if you will, now we're looking at the next thing to worry about for the next 30 days.
Right.
And so that cycle went away for the 10 years where rates were so predictable, but that's how it was before things got easy, if you will, right?
Right.
And that's just kind of the normal way it goes. So if you buy a house on Saturday and it just so happens that the Fed announcement is on the next Tuesday and Wednesday, you shouldn't be in a panic to get your interest rate locked because they're going to raise rates on that day. If rates were going up because of that announcement, it's probably already in the numbers.
No different than the stock market when they react to news or sort of rumors before they actually get to earnings.
Exactly. Live your life, buy your house, and make a plan that makes sense for you.
Right. At the end of the day, if you need a home, you need a home.
Right.
So
let's find the best way to help you do that.
So speaking of homes, we're going to talk first about Indigo. We have Sarah that's going to show us one of our homes in progress. I believe it's a Victory, but she'll tell you a little bit more about it. So let's go over to Sarah and see what she has to show us.
Okay.
Thanks, Carlos and Steve. I'm Sarah. I'm over at Indigo in Lakewood Ranch. I'm about 30 minutes from the beach, and I'm standing in a Patriot model. It's 1,682 square feet, 3 bedrooms and a den, 2 bathrooms, and the low 600s. One of the last opportunities here in Indigo. Everything's included at the low 600s, which is light cabinetry, quartz countertops, wood look tile throughout all of our main living areas. This home also features lots of natural sunlight with the windows here along the side. We are pre-wired for a pool hookup if you wanted to add a gas heater, because we are a natural gas community. Both bathrooms, master and second, feature dual vanities. We have a walk-in closet in the master as well. This home is estimated to completion early next year. Here at Indigo, your HOA fees for this particular home is $238 a month. That includes your lawn maintenance, your landscaping. We have 2 pools here in the community that you can utilize. We have a 24-hour fitness center with a little yoga studio attached to that. We have pickleball, bocce ball, a small little playground for the kiddos, and we have a lifestyles director, and you'll hear from her shortly, Yvette. Indigo is located in the north half of Lakewood Ranch in between White Eagle and 44th. Now eventually 44th is going to turn into Cortez Road, which means for our residents here, you'll be able to exit by the amenity center and go straight to Anna Maria Island. You'll be there in probably about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on traffic, of course. We are very close to UTC, University Town Center. Main Street, we're about 12, 13 minutes away. We've got plenty of shops and restaurants going in on the north half of Lakewood Ranch as well. So lots of upcoming new activity going on for you to enjoy. Please leave your comments and questions down below. Carlos and Steve, back to you.
All right, we're back. Now that they've got some changes made to the set. Kind of odd to see that happening while you're live.
Disappearing X.
Yeah, disappearing X. So, okay, so beautiful home.
Yep.
Great
Very
community.
nice.
It's actually pretty much in closeout or pretty close to closeout with a decent number of final opportunities available. A couple product lines that you can choose from. So there's a lot of homes you can pick out at Indigo that you could potentially move into this year. But let's talk a little bit about closing costs and sort of like what the components of the closing costs are. Because I think a lot of times what happens is we get a lot of people from out of state they're used to a different type of closing, different type of costs that are associated with the closing. And I think a lot of times it's not clear for them when they go to the closing table or they get their estimates. It's like, well, wait, what am I paying for? So help us understand a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I'll start with just the basics. So closing costs, when you get the numbers from a mortgage company, it can be pretty intimidating, right? There's a sheet or two sheets full of numbers with names that don't make any sense unless you look at this on a daily basis. But simply what's happening is you're going to pay a couple of groups or a couple of people, if you will, for closing costs. So you're going to pay a mortgage company to do the mortgage. You're going to pay a title company to do the closing and make sure that you own the property properly. You're going to pay the municipalities or the taxing authorities, their pound of flesh, and then there's the HOA and the stuff that's kind of left over.
Your prepaids.
Yeah, no, the HOA. Well, yeah, some of it's prepaids, but just that bucket. And then in addition to that would be your prepaids and your escrows, which technically aren't closing costs, but that. So the mortgage company, right? They're doing the loan. They're paying for it. The title insurance is you want to make sure that you own the property correctly and you're protected in your ownership of the property. The thing that might get out of state people or just people who haven't bought a new construction home in a while is that HOA bucket is one of the places where it's going to catch. So these days in Florida, if you're buying a new house, there's going to be a homeowners association. They're going to ask for a capital contribution or an initial assessment. Essentially, it's a membership fee. And then normally there's going to be some paperwork charges that go with that and also some kind of proration for your membership dues, so you don't get a check or a bill the day after you close.
So they prepare you for as you're moving in.
Exactly. So you got a little bit of grace when you get in there. The other place where it might catch people off is Florida's transaction charges, right? Transaction taxes. So most places charge some kind of documentary stamps on the deed, a tax stamp, if you will. Florida also charges a documentary stamp on the note, meaning that it's a percentage of your loan amount, and they charge an intangible tax. So which is on the loan again. So on this house, which is roughly
$600,000 or so?
$600,000. That number and this is with a 20% down payment. That's about $7,000 worth of just transaction taxes going to the state and the county. Which, if you're from I know Indiana has almost next to nothing as far as those kinds of closings. You come down here and that might be a bit of a shock.
Big shock, yeah.
Yep. On the other hand, you don't pay income tax to the state, so it comes out in the wash.
At the end of the day, sort of like we said before, the money's going to go somewhere. It's whether you pay it here or you pay it there.
Right.
And I think it works all in the same across many locations. And of course, one of the things we talk about HOA dues or association dues, depending on the community and depending on what the services are that come along with that.
Absolutely.
There's also in a lot of communities in Florida, particularly in Florida, they're being built with CDDs, right? The bonds. So we get a lot of questions around those, and I think those are also things to consider when people are looking at a payment for a home, all in all. Absolutely.
So on the CDD front, basically it's a balance between what you're paying the HOA and what you're paying the CDD. But what you're really looking at is the level of amenities that you're getting for your money.
True. Okay. So before we jump into one of the other communities and one of other homes, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other costs and so on, let's talk a little bit about Indigo. There's Yvette, which is our lifestyle director. There's going to give us a quick little glimpse into the association there and sort of what Indigo has to offer.
Yvette Fernandez, and I'm the lifestyle director at Indigo at Lakewood Ranch. I plan all the events for the community, the trips. I help manage the clubs. I help book the clubhouse for various different events, whether they're baby showers or wedding showers, birthday parties. We have canasta clubs, multiple card clubs, beer brewing club. We have happy hours, wine tastings, men's night, ladies' night, men's breakfast. We have bingo, of course. We have karaoke tonight. We had a business card exchange. We have a lot of working professionals. We have family nights, a lot of different events for the kids. We have a all encompassed van that comes to visit us. It's like an RV trailer with different art projects for the kids we do once a month. We have food truck Fridays with live entertainment. You name it, we try to do it. We utilize the wellness model in planning our events, which is you look at all the different type of aspects. There's about 7 wellness aspects in planning your events. So you have physical, mental, spiritual, recreational. We have aquafit classes, Bible studies. So we pretty much try to have something for everybody, so nobody feels left out. There's always something to do. The goal is to make this like a cruise ship on land. People move to Indigo for the lifestyle. While we have a lot of people in different, stages in their life, the common goal everybody has is they want to be social, whether it's family with kids that they want to meet other kids and other parents, or empty nesters, they want to meet other empty nesters. So they move here because they really want to connect and be part of like a social hub. So then my role is to do just that, to connect neighbors, with community projects, with just different things to do, getting out in the community. And a lot of people also that live here are coming from somewhere else, so they have no idea of what Lakewood Ranch is about, what Sarasota has to offer. So this is where they come to just be, a full-time tourist, pretty much. I feel like my job is just making people's memories. I'm responsible for making memories and dreams, and like even with the little ones, I'm like, they're always gonna remember this party, this event, this weekend, that lady that gave me a lollipop. So that's what I do for a living. I just make memories and I love it.
Ask about closing costs, and it's you can tell it's a nerve-wracking experience. One of the things that they worry about is the mortgage company adding something to this fee, so they're charging me a credit report fee or an appraisal fee or whatever it is, and then keeping the money. Well, in the state of Florida, you can't do that. All I can do is charge the cost that I pass on to the customer. But the way that the federal regulations work, if I mess certain numbers up, I have to pay for the difference. So if I disclose things incorrectly in the wrong time frame and it's lower, right? I can't go back and charge the customer for that. I'm stuck
with it.
Right. So the rules around giving people numbers are much stricter than people understand, and it's to the consumer's benefit at this point in the game.
Oh, for sure. When I was selling homes, I think our disclosures at the time, this is pre-recession, right?
Yep.
You just disclosed it. I mean, even up to they were at the closing table when they were getting their numbers.
Right. No, exactly. That's exactly right. So it's been years, but I've had grown men call me in tears from the closing table saying they didn't tell me they were going to charge me this extra $3,000. So.
And I mean, a lot of times that comes in the fine print. That's one of the things I was going to talk about, is the fact that as a consumer, you have to read the fine print. Because a lot of times it's just sort of juggling numbers around, and if you miss something, you could very well have purchased a home and not realize that you have to pay for whether it's a lock fee or something to get to that rate that was advertised. So that's one of the things that we want consumers to make sure they're aware of.
The other thing that comes up frequently is just do I have to escrow? Do I have to put reserves in with my payment? And rule of thumb is if you're doing 20% down or better, no, you don't. At that point, it's optional. You can either pay your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance with the mortgage payment, or choose not to. If you're doing a government loan, meaning an FHA or a VA or a USDA loan, then you're always going to need to do the escrows. But
I mean, I think from a lender's perspective, the more money you're giving out, the more risk you're taking. So therefore, I think having escrows and making sure that you're going to get those payments.
As I understand it, that's the logic, right? So if you don't pay your taxes and somebody puts a tax lien on your home, then the bank can't foreclose and get their money back if there's a problem that develops. So the logic is, if they're doing it, then it should be safe.
Yeah, so it makes sense. I mean, can't hold them accountable for that. So I guess we're actually sitting in Cielo. This is one of our other closeout communities. We have just a few opportunities. I think probably around 5 or 6 opportunities, including the model that we're sitting in. So this home is actually going to come up for available pretty soon. Actually, I think Mary, our salesperson, actually just walked by, so let's let her say hello real quick. In case you do come out to Cielo and you want to talk to someone, this is Mary Quaid.
Hello.
She's our sales extraordinaire, has seen this community pretty much from the inception.
From the very beginning.
And it's going to close it out for us. So anything to say about the community?
Yeah, I think, Cielo is going to be more of a boutique style community. It's kind of one of a kind. It's more of an intimate setting. It's going to be 71 homes total. Sort of build your own oasis theme. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah, beautiful community down in Venice. So come say hi to Mary. Okay. So I guess Steve, you want to come back and we'll talk a little bit more about
Switch seats.
unless Mary wants to talk about temporary buy downs.
okay.
Thank you, Mary. So buy downs, right? There's a lot of advertising and so on about different rates and what you can achieve, right? In a normal market right now, we're in the high fives, early sixes, but people are seeing advertisements for 4% and even in some cases high threes. How does one achieve that kind of rate in this type of market, and what are some of those options?
So if the seller or the builder in this case is going to give you a large seller incentive, right, like you're talking about, then you can,
Wait, I'm giving a large seller incentive? Yeah, we will.
yes.
We will in September.
So you can use that to knock the interest rate down. So for buy downs, there's two categories. One would just be a permanent buy down, which is the same thing as paying points, right? Which sometimes is a dirty word, but that's just not true. The other one is a temporary buy down. So in the first case, on the permanent buy down, you look at the market for the day and you say, my rate for the day is 6%, but if I spend 1% or 2% of the loan amount, I'm going to get my interest rate lowered by X number of dollars. So on promotions like that, that's probably part of what's happening is they've bought the rate down from, or they will buy the rate down from the existing market to some number. On a temporary buy down, which you could do, in addition to that or in lieu of that, whichever it was, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm gonna use round numbers because it's easy. My interest rate is 6%, but I'm gonna do a quote unquote 2-1 buy down, and that just means that in the first 12 months of making the payments on that loan when it's closed, is you're making a payment as if it's a 4% interest rate on your loan. Your payment's 4%, your loan is 6% technically. And then in the second year it would be 5%, then third year it would be 6%, and you carry on through the rest of the year.
But one of the caveats to that, as I understand, is that you still have to qualify at the higher payment.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, everything else about the loan is going to be just like it's 6%. All that's happening there is that when the loan closes, they're going to take enough money to get from that 4% payment to the 6% payment and stick it in an escrow account. And the same thing for the second year. So when you make your first house payment, your payment gets sent to the bank and they pull the remainder to get to the 6% out of the escrow account, and it all rights.
Subsidize that additional amount.
Exactly. You do that for 12 months and then it's a smaller amount that's subsidized. And then in the third year, it's 6%.
Welcome to Silverleaf by Neal Communities. My name is Trevor Lasada, and today we're standing on our fresh spring floor plan. This floor plan is 1,812 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a large oversized den. This home was put together by our award-winning design team over at our design center. Inside of the home, they featured wood look tile throughout the entire living space, quartz countertops, along with white cabinets to really brighten up the room. This home features all of your upgraded kitchen appliances, along with a partial lake view on our natural lake with beautiful cypress trees surrounding the entire lake. In the owner's suite, we have a double vanity sink with a huge walk-in closet, as well as a big walk-in shower. In your second bedroom, we have a spacious walk-in closet for plenty of storage or space for guests. We can have you in this home for under $550 if you come check it out today. Don't forget, this home is available right now and is a move-in ready home. Silverleaf is the premier community in Parrish. We are only about 3.5 miles away from I-75, and we're located in between 301 and Old Tampa Road. Our amenities consist of a resort-style heated pool, hot tub spa. We have a 24-hour fitness center, 2 dog parks, one for your large dogs and one for your smaller dogs. We have paved sidewalks and nature trails throughout the entire community on both sides of the road. And don't forget, we are a 24-hour video surveillance gated community. Something that separates Silverleaf from all of the other communities in Parrish is that Mr. Neal made sure that he was on site to preserve as much of the mature and natural landscaping that you see here today. We have all of this for only $121 a month for your HOA, and your CDD is $1,205 annually. Let's take it back to Steve and Carlos to see what they can do to help you get into this home today.
So if you miss any of the last bit when we were chatting about essentially the online tools and how sometimes those advertised rates are not quite what they seem and how to figure that out, by all means, you can also contact us and with any questions you have regarding the topics that we're talking about today. If you have questions regarding specific homes and what we have available in any of the communities that we're featuring today, just reach out to our online sales counselors or just go to our website at nealcommunities.com, and then find the community of interest, and you'll find out more information there. Our online sales consultants will be able to tell you everything about every community that we have presence in. So Indigo, same thing, another closeout community. It's, I think, going on.
Silverleaf, you mean?
Sorry, yeah, Silverleaf. Thank you.
Sure.
Glad I got you here. So yeah, Silverleaf is, I think, on the maybe 9th year. It way long precedes me joining Neal. But fantastic community. Trevor, highlighted a few of the things that that went into the making of that community. So final opportunities there as well. I think we're right in the 20-ish opportunities available. 2 different product lines you can choose from, 33-foot and 40-foot wide homes. So anyways, let's talk a little about the mortgage payments, right? People always have questions about sort of what comprises a payment and what that would look like on something, such as, the homes we're seeing today.
So payment basics, right? When you make a house payment, you're going to pay back the loan, the principal and interest. You're going to pay for your property taxes. If you get a mortgage, you have to have homeowners insurance on your property. If you didn't get a mortgage, I still recommend you had it, but you don't have to have it, right? The paperwork from the mortgage, if there's a CDD, would show a separate line for the CDD. In real life, that would be in your tax bill, just the same, or in your tax line on your mortgage statement. And then again, when the mortgage company calculates a payment, it's always going to show the monthly number for the HOA in the payment. Even though in real life, one check goes to the mortgage company, the other check goes to the homeowners association, and they're separate things. But when an underwriter looks at your file, they're going to compare your monthly cost of owning the home to your monthly income. So that's why it's that way. So in Silverleaf, right, for the home we're talking about, again, I just did a rough
estimate.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
It's hard to.
So with that sale price, what was it, 564, and you did 5% down, your loan would be at 536. So just looking at a possible interest rate or a reasonable interest rate with a 740 credit score yesterday, the interest rate was 6.125%, right? That puts an all-in payment number, including that HOA number, of about $4,300.
Okay.
So our estimate for insurance is about $90 a month. Our estimate for property taxes is about $580 at that sale price. The mortgage insurance, because you've only got 5% down, is $230, $240-ish. And the HOA, the monthly, is $121. So the check you'd be writing to the mortgage company is, give or take, $4,200. You do your HOA payment quarterly.
Your association separately.
So if that's where you start, there's different ways to get that payment.
Because that's only 5% down.
Correct.
So if somebody were to say, "Oh, I've got 10% aside, or even 20%," that payment would probably go down a good bit, right?
Yeah. So if you were to do 20% and that was your starting point, then give or take $700 would come out of the payment. So the loan gets smaller, so the principal and interest part gets smaller, and then you don't need the mortgage insurance because you've got 20% down. So that would disappear.
That's a big difference between the two.
It can be, but putting 20% down isn't the only way that you can get rid of the mortgage insurance, right? So it's entirely possible to get a single premium for mortgage insurance, which it's kind of like if you pay your car insurance 12 months at a time, they give you a discount.
Yeah.
Same basic idea. So
don't give it all away. We're going to talk about that in a minute, aren't we?
Well, but what I'm saying is there's multiple ways to adjust that payment. So you look at doing things with the interest rate. So you pay points to make the rate lower. You can do a temporary buy down. You can get rid of the mortgage insurance. And if you're using the builder's incentive money, then that becomes pretty attractive.
So that's a big benefit that we're going to be offering, right? Is September, we're going to be focusing pretty heavily on allowing, some additional closing costs to offset some of these things and to be able to get a little creative to get people qualified.
Yeah, if you're looking at buying a house, there's two things. One is the payment, and can I live with the payment? Is this what I want to do? But the other part of it is what's left in the bank when I'm done, right?
Right.
Generally speaking, I wouldn't want to move into a new house with my, using my last nickel. I want to have something between me and being homeless.
People still use nickels?
Yeah, whatever. Showing my age, I guess. But yeah, so
it makes sense.
If you're looking at 5% or 10%, there's the payment calculation, but there's also the security calculation. How much money do I have left over in the bank to help out if something comes up?
Right, and again, same thing. If you're using builder money, right, the incentives to pay off a lot of the closing costs, it allows you to keep some of that money in your pocket.
Absolutely.
Okay. As far as qualifying term, I I think a lot. You mentioned 740, right? Is that that'll be at all like, hey, if you don't have a 740, you can't get qualified? I don't think that's the case, right?
No, not at all. So there's two parts. There's qualifying, and then there's pricing. So for generally speaking, 620 is the lowest score that you're going to want to have to qualify. You can go below that, but that's kind of a complicated conversation. At 620, you're going to need your numbers to make pretty good sense. They're going to have to be pretty solid. But it's entirely possible to get a home there. What's going to happen, though, is that if you have mortgage insurance, you're going to get hit very hard because of that credit score. So that $290 homeowners or mortgage insurance here probably goes to something like $400 or $500.
Because you're a higher risk.
Well, because that's what the credit score is supposed to represent. Whether that's true or not, that's a different animal. But if that's the case, if you're coming in at a 635 and we're building a home and we've got 12 months to play with, we have a qualification improvement department where we can look at the credit and we can tell you if you can do this, this, and this, then your score should go up by this, this many
That's
points.
helpful.
So we might be able to go from a 635 to a 700, depending on what's dragging those scores down in the first place.
And now in the climate that we're in terms of building, right? There's a lot of times where that time frame is a little longer than usual, right?
Yep.
I mean, due to all the supply challenges we've been going through over the last couple of years, the increased demand in housing over the last couple of years, as well as the labor shortages in some cases, building a home takes a little longer today than it did yesterday.
Yeah. So it might be a perfectly reasonable plan to say, this is where I'm at. This is where it looks like I can get to with a reasonable degree of certainty, as long as I participate in the plan correctly, and we get there.
Okay.
So,
and then what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about lock periods, because that also factors into that.
yeah. So we started the question though with qualifying and credit scores and what was necessary to qualify, right? So that 620 is the minimum. Really 680, 720, 740, 760. That's where things step. If you're above 700, qualifying should probably be pretty straightforward. As long as your numbers make sense. What you're talking about between 680 and 740 and 760 is the difference in interest rate and the difference in the PMI. So the PMI can be pretty expensive if you're below 680. And the interest rate can also they can hit you pretty hard there too. So for almost anybody when they come in, if you're below 740, we're going to at least take a look at that qualification improvement tool to say, can we get you up a little bit before we...
Which in turn,
straight.
even if you've qualified here, if your payment actually goes down a little bit because the PMI and the interest rate goes down, then you're better off than when you started.
Exactly. So if all you need to do is pay off a part of your balance on your credit cards, and it's going to save you, $70 or $100 on your house payment,
it's a no-brainer.
It'd be nuts not to do it. Yeah.
And as far as a lock period, right, for the actual home itself, because if I'm building a home, say I start tomorrow, and it's going to be 11 months to actually deliver the home. Clearly, I don't know what the Fed's going to do to influence what the mortgage rates may or may not do. So how do what are the options when it comes to that?
So just lock basics, right? When you lock in the interest rate, it means you say on a date, I agree that my interest rate is going to be this, and it's going to be this number for this long. And that's your expiration date. So traditionally, or even if you're buying a resale, you're probably locking in an interest rate for 30 days or 45 or 60 days. And that's what the advertisements, these days advertisements are mostly for 60 days. If you want to go beyond that, there are those tools too, and those are generally referred to as extended locks. With a lock, time is money. The longer that lock is, the more expensive it's going to be. So if you're looking at a 30-day lock and then you look at a 45 and a 60, there's probably a little bit of extra money for those numbers. Once you go out to 6 months or 9 months or 12 months, then there's going to be it's going to cost more. The way that we're set up to operate is on the 6, the 9, and 12 month, we ask for 1% of your loan amount up front. So if it's a $400,000 loan, we're looking for $4,000, and that's your skin in the game to keep you.
And that comes from the buyer.
In luck, that's going to come from the buyer, right? And then the interest rate's going to be a little bit higher depending on the time that you're asking for. So and just like any lock, some days will be better to do it and other days will be worse, and it just depends on what you're doing. That doesn't really change. The options to buy down the interest rate still exist. So even though there's a premium for that time in the interest rate, you can still look at it and say, well, I'd like to use some money to buy the interest rate down. So it can even itself out. The key there really is trying to make a good decision about when the home is going to be completed. And like you just talked about, that's
a little uncertainty.
That's a little
around
bit
there.
more complicated.
But you could, but in theory, you could essentially opt to have a little bit of each, right? You say we were given, hypothetically speaking, up to $30,000 in closing incentives. You could use a large portion of that for your closing costs. Keep a portion for an interest rate buy down, whether that's a quarter of a point or half a point, whatever that equals. And then also have some sort of lock component in there to sort of like hedge your bets a little bit.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's nice to ask a question and to get an answer. You know, are interest rates going up or are they going down? When is my house going to be done? Whatever it may be. And the simple fact of the matter is sometimes you can't give those answers. So if I'm the person asking that question, then what I'm trying to do is, instead of preparing for the option that I want to hear about, I'm trying to prepare for two options. Here's my good option, here's my bad option, or my less good option, whatever that might be. And then I'm going to have a better peace of mind for approaching that whole circumstance. But in terms of locking an interest rate, once upon a time it was just trying to figure out when the good time to lock was going to be. Now it's more like I'm trading my risk. So I'm going to lock it at this interest rate because I think it's a good decision to make now, but I understand that I might need more time on the end of that lock because I don't have a date yet. So I might have to pay for extensions. If I choose not to lock, then I'm open to the market changing, and the rate can go higher and it can go lower, so my risk is that it goes higher. So in my mind, in my heart of hearts, where am I most comfortable? Am I most comfortable watching the interest rates go up and go down? Or am I most comfortable in understanding that the time frame might not work out the way I hoped and I might have to pay for extensions? And that's the decision that you're making, whether you realize it or not.
And I think one of the benefits of our conversation today is that, as I said before, we have 30 plus homes across various communities that are a little bit closer to completion, which allows you to sort of target and sort of project what that closing is going to look like. So even though it's not perfect science, right, and things can always change and something could go wrong, at the end of the day, you have a little bit better visibility than you do from the day one when you first start the home.
Absolutely. So that's the tail end of the adjustments made to deal with COVID, right? So you started homes with the intention of not releasing them to the market until they were substantially complete for different reasons at that time, right? But at this point, what it means is it makes life a little bit easier on the people buying the homes and trying to figure out when
especially if they need something sooner.
Right, when they need to do what they do. And in that kind of a setup, then that 6 month or that 9 month lock probably makes really good sense. And if the house is even closer, we can do things like 105-day locks or 135-day locks.
A little more unique.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's go out to one of the other communities and go see Vicenza, which is actually just down the street from us here in the Venice area. And we'll talk to Connie and get to know a little bit about the homes that she's got to offer.
To Vicenza, I'm Connie Chase, and I'm standing in one of our planned feature homes. This home is a Victory home, scheduled to be completed by the end of this year. We have this home and other homes that are available as well in the 600s range. As you can see, this home is still under construction. It will be in the drywall phase soon, and that's when it will begin looking a little bit more like a home. Our award-winning designers planned all of the design for this home, so it is done neutral so that you can bring your own personality and design touches, but it has quartz countertops, white cabinets, nice tile flooring, a wonderful pocket sliding glass door to bring the outdoors in. In Vicenza, all of our home sites back to either nice preserve or water. This particular home has a beautiful preserve view. This Victory home is available in the low 600s. It's available for you to purchase now. Carlos and Steve can answer all the questions that you have. Just make sure you submit your questions on the comment section. That is what we're here for, is to get all of your questions answered. Vicenza is a gorgeous community. Once completed, it will have 539 homes. We have just over 300 acres. It's a beautiful area, all home sites back to preserve or water. You have to come visit us to get a feel of the overall look and feel. Lots of curved streets. We have a lot of nature trails, a nice amenity center with a wonderful lifestyle director. She plans a lot of great events, resort style pool with shaded areas. We have pickleball, we have bocce ball. We have easy access to 75, which means you can get pretty much anywhere you need to go quickly into Sarasota or Venice. We're not far off of Jacaranda and Laurel Boulevard as well. The nice thing about us, we're east of 75. You have a really nice, serene feel, but yet you're close to everything. Vicenza has no CDD and very low HOA fees, which is a benefit to you. Steve and Carlos can talk to you a little bit more about that and what that means in regards to budgeting for your new home. I look forward to seeing you soon, but for now, back to Carlos and Steve.
All right, welcome back. Beautiful community, which is not in closeout. One of the things that we didn't talk about is how many communities that we've recently opened up and how many more we have coming. So we have a large property large location that we're building in Parrish, which is going to be fantastic, just out across the street from our Riverfield townhomes. So that's coming up here in the next couple months. We'll probably start pre-selling in October, so it's exciting. And then we have Grand Park and Windward. Grand Park and Windward, which are master plan communities, one on the south side of Lakewood Ranch that opened up just less than 2 years ago, a little bit less than 2 years ago. And then Grand Park, which is around the same timeline, amazing amenities. One of them still not quite open yet. We're finishing some items in there, but great communities. There's a lot of communities. You can find more information on our website, and then talk to our online sales consultants, and they can tell you also what's coming down the line. I did get a question on one of the platforms. So if rates go down, what happens to the money spent on a rate lock?
So there's something called a float down, right? And that's industry jargon. So basically any lock probably has that feature. Not everybody does it, but most people do. And then again, the way that they handle it's going to be a little bit different. Normally there'll be some time frame related to your close date. So I think there might be one or two places out there that would do it any time in the space of the lock, but that's not normal, at least not what I'm used to. It's normally going to be something like within 30 days of closing, one time you can lower your interest rate, based on the changes in the market. But you're not going to get the whole change. That change costs the lender some money, so there's some sort of internal hurdle. It has to be improved X number of whatevers before they'll pass on part of the improvement to you. So if you're locked at 6% and rates go to 5.75, you may or may not get a float down. If you're locked at 6% and rates go to 5 and you're within the time frame that the lender sets, then probably you're going to end up at 5.75 or something like that to get the lower rate. If it's an extended lock, that money is gone and it's out the door. So different places would have different policies. Ours would be, if your loan gets denied, we would give you that money back. But if you decide to go somewhere else and do your loan with another company, then
you lose that.
You lose the money. And that's why it's there, just because it costs us money to do that lock. We spend money when we push that button, if you will.
Gotcha. No, that absolutely makes sense. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if the differential between what the rate that you're locked in at and the rate that is prevailing is large enough, then it makes sense at that point if you have that float down option.
Right, absolutely. And hopefully your lender's checking on that for you. Right?
Which you guys do a great job. I know a lot of times you get beat up pretty bad. Neal Communities Funding does, and your crew, because it's not a straightforward game, right? I mean, there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of repeat documentation that you guys have to request, and I think a lot of times the consumer, particularly ones that haven't purchased a home in a long time, and or are first-time buyers, they don't know what it all entails. But when you're lending out $600,000 for a house, you would expect that there are going to be requirements that come along with it, and you guys sort of get the brunt of.
I could talk about this for hours. When I applied for my own mortgage last time, was it 5 years ago? My first thought was, man, I don't want to do this. Right? I do not want to be bothered with all this paperwork. There's just no way to make it fun. I'm sorry. But at the same time, the tools for doing things are so much better. I think part of the misunderstanding with people is the idea that somehow some quality of my financial life makes me immune to the needs that are the same for everybody. So one of the reasons mortgages became such a mess in 2008 was because they excluded documentation based on this criteria or that criteria, and then they just went nuts. The way it works now and the way it should work is that your mortgage approval is more like a checklist than a resume or a job interview. You put the information in the computer, the underwriter verifies that this all makes sense, and you get a checklist of stuff you need to provide. It doesn't matter whether you're doing $1 million loan or whether you're doing a $200,000 loan or a $50,000 loan. We don't do $50,000 loans, but the same idea. The checklist is basically the same for everybody. There is no nice guy exclusion. There is no, oh, my credit score is 800, so I don't have to give you my bank statements exclusion. That doesn't work. Those, now in retrospect, people call those liar loans. So they might have a place in the world if you could trust people in the system to do them correctly. But, whatever 2006 to 2009 would tell you different. So that's why it's not there.
So whether it's lender B, lender A, lender Z, or Neal Communities funding, at the end of the day, you're submitting similar documentation, if not the exact same.
It's going to vary slightly. Everybody has a little bit of twist in what they ask for or what they worry about. But basically, yeah, it's all the same. We all go to the same well. The rules are all driven by either Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and those are largely the same anyway. And that's what we're underwriting to, because for the mortgage to live after closing as a widget in the sea of mortgages out there, it's got to look the right way. If you don't check all the boxes on your checklist, it doesn't look the right way. It's not a good widget, and you got problems.
And they don't want it.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and one of the benefits of Neal Communities funding is the fact that it is in-house, and you deal with only, for the most part, only new construction.
I think of this as a boutique, if you will, right? So I've been doing this for 20 years, right? I was thinking about this. I've probably done 15, 20 refinances in those 20 years. I've probably done 5 or 6 spot sales, and that's usually at special request from a friend. When I'm doing those loans, I'm a fish out of water. I can do it. I know what's supposed to happen, but I don't necessarily trust my skill or my attention level that I'm comfortable with in the builder world. The builder world gives you all kinds of crazy stuff. So first, there's just the volume of experience and the number of people that you talk to helps broaden your skill set enormously. And the things that happen with new construction are not like the things that happen with existing homes.
In the resale
right?
market.
Yeah, it could be something in land development. It could be something in the construction things. In the process of doing a mortgage, a bank who's conservative and doing doing loans the way that makes sense to them might say, we won't do an appraisal until you've got the certificate of occupancy for the home. Well, okay, that's very conservative underwriting, and kudos to you for that. But as a homeowner, that also means that your house is done, it's got a CO on it, and now you've got to wait 10 days for the appraisal to get done, and probably another 10 days for underwriting to look at the appraisal and do the final stuff to close your house. We're built so that in places where we can get a time advantage in the process by understanding what goes on with building a new home, we can avoid those kinds of delays.
That's good to hear. So any other things that you want to add on that we want to talk about? I think we covered everything, right?
Where's my list of additional? I think we pretty much...
I think we covered everything. But as always, if there are questions that you want to reach out to us with, we're happy to chat with you. If you're looking to get pre-qualified because you're in the market for a new home with Neal, you can call Steve's team. You can call us at 941-200-0855. Or go to our website and find as much information as you'd like, and then talk to our online sales counselors. I think there was one question regarding, let me double check before we get off the air.
Closing timeframes?
Yeah, the closing timeframes.
The notice?
Yes. The average notification from the time that the home is ready to close.
So as part of the mortgage process, right, we speak with customer care, which are the folks that call to schedule the closing. So Neal, for as long as I've been there, have always tried really hard to give people at least 30 days notice before they close. And they would normally hold to that. They're not a builder that's going to call you up and say, your house is ready, you have to close in 5 days or 7 days or something like that. They won't do that to you. On the other hand, in the current environment, if somebody is got reason that they want to close faster than 30 days and it can be done, they would absolutely try to accommodate you as far as that goes. So the calls these days are not cookie cutter the same, right? It's going to be, if your house is ready, we could close in 2 weeks. What do you think? I need 30 days. Okay. No, I want to close tomorrow if I can. Okay, let's close in 2 weeks.
Let's see if we can get it
sooner
rather than later. Yeah, I mean it's not a perfect science. There's a lot of wonky things that have happened in the market over the last couple of years, and I think at the end of the day, as consumers, we just have to be understanding of the fact that it's not perfect. I mean, whether it's if you're buying a car, if you were buying appliances a year and a half ago, if you were buying furniture, whatever it may be, I mean, Chick-fil-A sauce, for God's sake. I'm allowed to say that. But,
Yep.
you know,
No,
that was out for a while. But at the end of the day, it's supply chain issues, and you know, there's a lot of variables. So we'll do our best, and so will you, right?
Absolutely.
So for September, we will have a great promotion going on. We're going to focus very heavily on closing costs and particularly on homes that can close this year. So, you know, stay tuned, check your email, your inbox, because we'll be sending some information out over the next, next 2 days. And if you have any questions, please reach out. But we thank you guys for joining us today in this little special edition. And we thank you, Steve, for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks for having me.